Hello, everyone, it's me again. Now, a lot of you may be asking, did I take the weekend off? No, I have two Ultra channels now. My second one just started off with a cover of the Spectacular Spider-Man theme song. But today's video will be, what if Springer was in the Michael Bay Transformers films? Like, what if Springer was in the Bayverse? So let's find out, shall we? If any of you don't know, Springer was actually going to appear in the Bayverse. His debut was meant to be in Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, but for some reason his role was cut. I don't know why. So, let's say Springer had stayed, shall we? Now, from what I've heard, Springer was supposed to turn into an Osprey and not be a triple changer like in G1. I think it's interesting, honestly, that he would be just a singular vehicle. I'm not too sure if Michael Bay didn't like the triple changing element and just wanted to ditch that completely to fit the realism of the Bayverse. I don't know. I really don't. But Springer, of course, would have appeared as an Osprey. And of course, he would have had to appear during the opening fight in Shanghai. Maybe he would have came off of the ship along with Optimus. And of course, he could have had an air fight with Starscream. And he doesn't really do a lot, honestly. But in terms of who I could see playing Springer, I'd say maybe Nathan Fillion. But movie is mostly the same up until the final battle, because instead of the RC sisters dying, Springer would actually save them from death. And of course, RC would thank Springer for saving them as a nod to G1, because they had a relationship in G1, by the way. And of course, he could have actually met Jetfire along with Bumblebee, Skids, and Mudflap. I would actually participate. I'd actually imagine him participating during that quest. And maybe even calming Skids and Mudflap down. Now, what happens in the future? Let's move on to Transformers Dark of the Moon, where I picture two different scenarios. Okay, scenario 1. When Central Prime turns against the Autobots by killing Ironhide, he then, of course, would have proceeded to kill Skids and Mudflap, like in the deleted scenes. Like, I keep bringing this up because, in my humble opinion, Dark of the Moon really should have kept that scene. It really should have. But Springer doesn't really do a lot aside from going on the mission to Chernobyl, and during the final battle of Mission City, not Mission City, but, you know, Chicago, yeah, the RC sisters would participate, but rather than Wheeljack being the only victim, Springer and Chromia would have died. Like, apparently Springer was going to make his debut in Dark of the Moon, and remember when Starscream was destroying one of the Ospreys? Yeah, that would embark in the fight between Springer and Starscream, which probably would have ended with Springer and Starscream killing each other. And thus it leaves the events of Age of Extinction last night to remain mostly unchanged, except Alita 1 and RC would be in those films. Now, there's scenario 2. Springer survives Dark of the Moon. So, of course, there would be the scenario that Springer survives. Apparently, Springer would survive and kill Starscream. But Chromia dies. Now, what would happen in the last night and Age of Extinction? By the time of Age of Extinction, I don't think a lot would change. I think by the time of Age of Extinction, he would have disappeared. And remember when Topspin was in Cuba with Seymour Simmons? Yeah, Sprinter would probably replace Topspin. And the Wreckers would be confirmed to have been hunted down, killed by Cemetery Wind. But we can also ditch the Cuba plot in favor of Sprinter being in custody of Sir Edmund Burton. And remember those non-irrelevant Transformers from World War II? Yeah, instead they'd be... one of which would be Cup and the other would be Blur. This would be a reference to the 86 film, in which Sprinter, Blur, and Cup, as well as RC and Hot Rod, all made their debuts in that film, as well as Unicron. And of course, Sprinter would meet Hot Rod for the first time, since they were best friends in G1. And he would reconnect with RC, and since it's the 86 film referencing, Megatron likely would not have became Megatron again. He would have stayed Galvatron. But he may have had some new Decepticons, like one of which would be Cyclonus, who would have been his own character separate from Skywarp, like in the IDW comics and the Unicron trilogy. But akin to the Unicron trilogy, he would be a helicopter. And I honestly think Onslaught and Barricade would have survived while Dreadbot, Mohawk, and Nitro Zeus all get killed off. But Sprinter, RC, Alita, Blur, and Cup, if Cup were to survive or not, they would all return to Cybertron at the end. And we probably would have seen them in Rise of Unicron had that film happened. Which would have probably featured the debut of Ultra Magnus, thus completing the 86 Autobots. So that's what if Sprinter was in the Bayverse. Now, the question is, should Sprinter have appeared? Yes, Sprinter should have been in those movies. He really should have. In the future, I'm going to be making a video called Top 10 Characters That Should Have Been in the Bayverse. I know I keep on slacking with the top 10 videos, but I hope I'll get better with them soon enough in the future. Anyways, bye.